Welcome to the Edinburgh Fringe. It's been a while, but this podcast belongs to Lionel Ritchie. Yes, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, welcome wherever you are. This is Edinburgh calling in. Technically, this is our final preview, but it's also technically the first day of the Fringe, even though Fringe previews have been running since Tuesday and the Fringe is starting now and I'm still previewing. But there we go. You know what? It says final preview on my spreadsheet and that is good enough for me. Welcome, Ewan, Spence here. It's the arts capital of the world calling with well over 3,000 shows to choose from. Just a little sample of one show coming to you today. But it's probably a good time to remember the rule of three that I always tell you if you're going to be in Edinburgh. And that is how to choose your shows. So, 1. Somebody you know, somebody you trust, somebody that's been on the TV, a comfortable, a safe choice. You are going to be spending a bit of money at the Fringe. So it's good to have at least one thing you know is going to be good. The second, something that somebody else thinks is good. Now, that could be a recommendation from somebody you know. It could be listening to one of the interviews that's coming up over the next 3 weeks here on the Fringe podcast or on other podcasts or on websites or reviews in the national press. I believe there are still one or two national press still doing reviews out there. Somebody that somebody else loves. That's your second one. And your third one? Who knows? Choose something at random. Look around where you're standing in Edinburgh and go, there's a venue there. What's that? It's St. Augustine's Church. It's got a Fringe number outside it. Let's see what's on. Choose something at random. In the old days when everybody had the catalogue, you could just flip through it like a deck of cards and stick your pen down randomly and choose a show that way. You still can. The programmes are still out there. It's a little bit harder to do it digitally now, but find a way to choose a show utterly at random. And there you'll have your 3 shows for the Fringe. And if you want to have some more shows, you just loop through and do the 3 again. If you're here for another couple of days, loop through that as well. Or just keep your eye out for something weird, such as a small sticker on a poster that says, this poster belongs to Lionel Ritchie. Decades ago, they covered the Fringe. And it was like, what is this show? Well, that's today's guest. Because many people who know their dim and distant past of the Fringe will know our guest today as Barry Ferns. Those Fringe historians from that period, about 2010 or so, will know him as Lionel Ritchie. And for those people starting out comedy now and going through a number of the clubs down in London and the scene there that's being built up for newcomers, will know him as, well, Barry Ferns again. And there you have the premise for this 2025 show. My 7 years as Lionel Ritchie. A strong narrative hour at the Fringe that charts the highs and lows of a comic at the Fringe. It is a non-fiction show. This is Barry's stories going through. And, we have the run-up to the Fringe, how he started, the many years of this year is the year, the debt, the bankruptcy, the return to the scene, all of that under the microscope of the audience. Barry and I touch on many of those subjects during our interview, and it gives you an idea specifically here of what performers face at the Fringe. This is why this is still a preview show, actually, because you can see we've got, Fringe veterans about what the Fringe means. We've got people new coming to the Fringe and what storytelling means, and now we've got what the Fringe, the impact of the Fringe on performers. So we do that. We're also going to talk a little bit about Barry's work at Angel Comedy and the Bill Murray Club and everything in between as well. So settle in for a little bit of Barry, Lionel, Barry, Ferns, Ritchie, Ferns. There are some performers at the Fringe who've been doing this almost as long as I have. Barry Ferns is one of them. Last 7 years when you weren't called Barry Ferns. Welcome to the show, Barry.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I mean,
Good to be back. Good
welcome
to be
back
back.
to the show.
Yeah, exactly. Well, good to be back.
Last time we did, I think you were on the show, we did the interview at the top of Arthur's Seat.
Yes.
And that's probably a good place to start because you have had some unique approaches to shows at the Fringe over the last 2 decades.
Yes, I do. I have. I've done many shows. One of the shows was on top of Arthur's Seat, which is it came up as an idea in 2007, which is when I changed my name to Lionel Ritchie, for which I'll go into later. But the reason why I did it, and this is why the reason why I do a lot of things, is an idea will occur to me that's absolutely ridiculous and nobody in their right mind should do it. And then that's why I do it. So if it appeals to me as a thing that's ridiculous, I will I will go all in on the roulette wheel of on the board of the poker match of the world. And it is ridiculous to do a show on Arthur Seat. So I did one show, one off on the in 2007, and then did it in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011. Then I did every single day of the Fringe in 2012 and 2013. And that's because I couldn't get a venue. So in 2012, I couldn't get a venue. I didn't have the money for a venue and I couldn't get one of the affordable ones or the. And so I thought, you know what, I could just do a show on top of Arthur's Seat. So I did rain or shine every single day on top of Arthur's Seat. And I tell you what, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it doesn't rain that much on Arthur's Seat, but on some days it absolutely belted it down, as you can imagine. And I went up because I can think of no other wrath than somebody that climbed Arthur's Seat for a show in the rain that wasn't there. It's a beautiful thing to do on top of Arthur's Seat. It's the venue does a lot of heavy lifting, and it's great capacity, so as many people can come up as possible. It's got room for 20 people seated or 1 million people standing. So it's a yeah.
What sort of numbers were you getting?
So the shows that I've done when I've done it as a one-off, I've got anything between 150 and 500 people. And then on when I was doing it daily, I was getting about 50 to 100 people a day. So yeah, I mean, I think some people didn't know there was a show, but when there was a show, they sat down and they watched it. I would bring up a doorway up there. I carried a doorway so that people had to enter the venue. I was also the venue manager. I'm the official venue manager for Arthur's Seat. Before me, it was managed by Historic Scotland. Before them, it was managed by God. Uh, but during God's tenure, actually, I should say, it was eroded to a tenth of its size and blown up 3 times because it was an active volcano. So I don't know what you want to extrapolate from that, but if you want something looked after, don't ask God.
Tell us about the show this year because it does encapsulate that early period of you at the Fringe, but also what came afterwards as well.
Yes, so the show this year is about so I come from working class background in Poole in Dorset. And I came up to the Fringe for the first time when I was 16 years old and fell in love with it and fell in love with comedy for various reasons. And it wasn't really written that I should have been into comedy. No, like none of my family are into the arts. I'm a big family. Nobody's even gone to university. I'm totally like don't have any comedy in my kind of family, even though they are unintentionally hilarious as I am. And because of that, though, I would come up to Edinburgh. I started coming up to taking up shows to Edinburgh, and I'd get into debt. So, and eventually, I ended up kind of doing 8 years at Edinburgh, and got more and more into debt as it occurred. And the last year, I ended up kind of having, in order to try and publicize the show, changing my name by default to Lionel Ritchie. So, and then I spent 7 years as a Lionel Ritchie. So, yeah, the show is about what happens when you change your name to a Grammy-winning pop star, but also when you feel forced to change your name to a Grammy-winning pop star in order to make a show work. That essentially, all the other years that I'd been up to the Fringe, I'd had really good reviews, everything had worked, but it's just the costs were prohibitive, and you'll find that at the Fringe this year. I mean, obviously you live up there, but there's a lot of people that kind of used to come to the Fringe, both performers and audience members, that can't afford it anymore. because the cost of living is absolutely insane. And also the performers that used to come up, like if you're working class, you just can't afford it. If you don't have a safety net, if you don't have a solid job, you can't afford £2,000, £3,000 for a venue, £2,000 for accommodation, and you don't cover it in ticket costs because there's just the rooms aren't that big. So a little bit about a romance story about the festival and why you would keep coming up even if it's hard, and what are the joys in it as well.
Do you think we're straying into somewhat more political side here? Let's go for that. Do you think that cost, which has kept increasing since you started the Fringe, do you think that is limiting? Or do you think there's a way that the Fringe can avoid that, that drag on a performer?
I think there is, yeah. And the reason I say that is because the current business model of, we're living this model of like, how much can you charge? How much can you get away with charging? And I think there's a very exploitative attitude towards the Fringe in general by quite big players that come in, whether it's a big agency. Like I know agencies that literally charge their performers £20 per night for the hire of a microphone as part of it. Or, the hire of a projector is £40 a night, just absolutely exorbitant cost that they wouldn't know until they get the bill at the end. And then they spend the rest of that year working for free, essentially doing gigs for free in order to work off the bill for the publicist and the microphone and the flyers and the flyers and the accommodation and everything else. And that's just one example of an exploitive model. And I just think it feels to me like we kind of live in that system at the moment where the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and that's excused because, like, well, everyone's out for themselves, so you should be kind of like trying to rinse everybody else out of as much money as possible. And I have a feeling that doesn't need to be the way.
So, do you think this show can be part of that conversation and can impact its own change?
I think it's definitely part of that conversation. I mean, what's interesting about for me, life story about coming up to the Fringe for so many times. There's a authenticity about just, I was homeless, I was bankrupt from taking shows to the Fringe. And I've lived that. And so I can kind of talk from experience. And I think I'm the canary in the coal mine. I think it happened to me earlier than it happened to lots of people. But I do see a lot of like great, talented people unable to do they can't get access to the Fringe from that. So I think it's a really important thing to talk about because there's a great phrase that I heard, I think it was Yuval Harari talking about it, but we need to change the story. The story of the Fringe has to be set up not to make money, but to actually make art. And I think that was the case more. And now it's about people making a huge amount of money, and it's usually not the performers.
So it's probably at this point I just want to bring in the other venture that you're bringing up, because I think that also feeds into this, which is the Angel Comedy Showcase.
Yes.
And this isn't it's a specific Fringe show, but Angel Comedy is all year round, and it's probably not something that's on the general public's radar.
Yeah. So basically I started a comedy club in 2012, and that club it was one night a week, and then it kind of took off. And then we ended up taking our own venue out in 2016. In fact, the Monkey Barrel that you'll know kind of came to us just as we were starting and asked us a load of questions. We had a couple of meetings with them to help them set up. But the club has a philosophy, like we put on more new comedians than any other club in the UK. We also have James Acaster and Kevin Bridges coming along and doing work in progress shows. But at the Fringe, we deliberately put on a showcase of brand new comedians, and they get all the money from the show. We pay all the expenses for the show. So last year, like in the last few years that we've done it, these are new comedians and they've had enough money plus change to pay for their accommodation while they're up at the Fringe. And like we literally don't take anything. We lose money putting it on, but because we just think that there's usually five comedians, sometimes six. And we just think that as a big organization, which is, we're not big, but as an organization, a limited company, Angel Comedy, it's our responsibility to put on that kind of thing. Like there should be support for New X because you need to make sure that you feed back into the system so that it kind of stays healthy. And I don't think that's much, doesn't happen too much I think the Stand do it very, very well. And I think the Monkey Barrel do it very well. And certainly the best Monkey Barrel have a good cut towards the performers. But yeah, that's one thing that Angel Comedy does, even though it's not based in Scotland.
How important is that paying it forward, paying it back to you?
I mean, if Angel Comedy existed when I was 16 and it was around me, I wouldn't have gone bankrupt. I wouldn't have been homeless. I mean, it's simple as that. Because a lot of the mistakes you make, I think, when you don't know how a system runs are unnecessary mistakes. And, what a mentor gives you or what a system, like a kind of a comedy youth club or a comedy club that's nearby that's sharing information is gold dust. And you can see that's why certain people make it. I mean, Jack Whitehall's parents are both agents. Now, you comedy, like he had all of the information there. If you even take away the fact that he was maybe introduced to people, but he grew up seeing how how the industry worked. It's a huge advantage. And so you don't have to make these mistakes if you've got people around you that can support and tell you how it's done.
So if everything was to stop now for you and you left the entertainment industry and everything, how much of a legacy would Angel Comedy be?
Um, It's interesting. I can't see it from the inside. So for me, the club is we put on 50 shows a week. Literally, James Acaster is downstairs right now building his new show on our stage. Uh, we've had Eddie Izzard built their last world tour with us, and we put on brand new people all the time. And so I know that on podcasts, Nish Kumar will talk about it, and James will talk about it, or it's been on, you know, when people talk about it, but I can't see that. For me, the gig is just an open mic gig that got out of hand. Like for me, it seems a lot more fragile to that. So I don't really extrapolate it. I mean, what's interesting about my own career is that while I'm lucky enough now to be able to perform here when I want, and I also perform in other clubs around the country, I'm always focused on just trying to get better at the art. So I'm getting better at performing and being funny and finding ways to be funny. So it's interesting. If my performing career stopped right now, I'd be a bit disappointed. I was just, I want to do this thing and that thing and these other things. And I don't think of the club as much in those terms, even though, but I think a lot of other people do. And a lot of comedians tell me that it's their home. And that's because there's a place where they can hang out. It's not just about the performance space, it's an actual venue. And there's a lot of support for new acts. And we also make sure we've got certain schemes to ensure there's always free comedy writing workshops for people every week. There's places where they can perform. And also we've got schemes to give people enough income to pay their rent through performing. So when they're taking that transition from full-time work to comedy work.
And you say you don't think you have a legacy.
Well, but just because I don't think of it like that, I don't. Honestly, like for me, I don't see it in that way. But yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because you can't see your own life from inside your life. The tongue can't taste itself. It's that kind of thing. So I think, I definitely do think that there's a lot of people that their careers have been informed by the place and their careers would have been different without it. Definitely.
You say that you can't talk about your own life while you're bringing up a show to Edinburgh about your own life. Pardon me for just flagging up a little bit of ironic inconsistency there, Barry.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the show itself about my 7 years as Lionel Ritchie is about a performing life in a way and finding a home, finding a place where I can perform. And so what Angel is for me, it's creating a home that I needed a comedy home where I needed. And if it was there, that I wouldn't have gone I wouldn't have had as much challenge maybe as I did. But I think that again, it's interesting because who was it I was talking to? This is going to sound like a clang of a name drop, but Eddie Izzard was because I often, as part of running the club and also part of performing in different places, I bump into people that were iconic for me as I was growing up. And Eddie Izzard was one of those people. It's just like, you know, I was watching their work, really informed me. It was one of the first comedy albums that I learned off by heart. And when I say learn off by heart, there are routines at Live with the Ambassadors that I just would repeat again and again and again. And when you meet somebody like that, they have no idea. All they're doing is they're meeting a brand new person. But I was talking to Susie, and she was saying it's really weird because she can't see how other people see her. So she just wants the new thing. I'm working on a new thing. This is my new shoe. I'm doing Hamlet, one person Hamlet. That's the most important thing now. But you can't think about the Mission Impossible. You can't think about the other stuff because that's for everyone else. It's like when you do a show and it's funny because you're on stage delivering the show, but often you'll finish a show, you'll come off stage, and so the first person you'll see is somebody that goes, I love that show. It was about this. And they'll tell you something that's the exact opposite of what you thought the show was about. And I used to be a bit sad about that. But then I realized actually the show isn't mine. Once you perform it, once you do a thing, it belongs to everyone else. So they get to determine its significance in a way. So in terms of legacy, that's for everyone else to decide. That's not mine. And I think that's true of both the club and the work that I've done. So sorry, I went all existentialist on you there.
I wouldn't worry about that. I mean, the question kind of, pointed that way as well.
That way, yeah, right.
So I'm assuming you've workshopped 7 years as Lionel Ritchie, yeah?
Yeah.
So have you come off the stage and what's been the most surprising I think the show was about?
The most enjoyable response that I had recently was somebody that came up to me and just went, because I mentioned some of my older shows, and they came up to me and just went, I just want you to know that you ruined comedy for me. And I was like, what do you mean? Well, I came to your show in Edinburgh in 2001. And just so you know, my show in 2001 was an anti-comedy show that was about 45 minutes of bad comedy for a huge payoff after 45 minutes. And this is what he said. He goes, you ruined comedy for me because it was a rainy day. We didn't know what we were going into. And so we went into the show and there's after 20 minutes, people were walking out. It wasn't going well, but I didn't want to go out into the rain. So I just thought I'd watch the entire show. And then what then transpired at 45 minutes was so funny and so unexpected. And I loved it so much that now I can't leave bad shows. So I see so many bad shows because I'm like, no, hold, it might be all right. And my wife hates me for it because we'll go to something and it's terrible. And I'll be like, no, wait. This could go somewhere else. And it never does. And I had, again, you just don't know what the experience that somebody else has of a thing. But it was a real left field, like, wow, this person saw a show that I did 22 years ago and not only just remembered it, indelibly remembered it, and also kind of like was one of the best shows that they saw and ruined their comedy life as well. So that was a really unexpected response.
Well, the unexpected itself, potentially at the 3 shows you've got at the Fringe this year. Do you want to go through them in order?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, so tell us when My 7 Years as Lionel Ritchie is on.
So My 7 Years as Lionel Ritchie is on at 6:40, just at Tonic the Caves. And that is a show where to guarantee a seat, you can pay in advance or you can pay, it's free to go in and you can queue up and you can give what feels right at the end, or you don't have to give anything. It's up to you.
Second, you have the Angel Comedy Showcase.
The Angel Comedy Showcase. Now that's 6 brand new comedians. I go in and I help out. I don't take any money from it. That's all theirs. But I go and do a little bit at the beginning or at the end, whatever supports the show. And I promise they're going to be great. Some people for their first ever Edinburgh show, but they're fantastic. They've been playing Angel Comedy down here. And there's some people that are like doing their first Fringe kind of proper run, and they use it as a way of letting people know what they're doing. And so that'll be great. And it's on at 2:00 at Kick-Ass on Cowgate.
And although we've not actually mentioned this year's edition,
yes,
you're climbing the hill again, aren't you?
I'm doing Arthur Seat again, and everybody's welcome. Literally, it has capacity for 1 million people, so please do come. And it's got great fire exits. So and it's an extinct volcano, so you're safe. But it's at 2:00 on the 16th of August. Saturday, the 16th of August at 2 o'clock on the top of Arthur's Seat. So, and it's not in the program, that one. It's just, I'll leaflet it, I let people know, but I don't put that in the program.
There we are. I've just done the maths here, and 1 million people takes about 3 or 4 square kilometres. So if you're there late, you might actually have to end up watching it from Leith.
Yes, but we do have amplification, so you'll be totally fine.
So we're all fine then. Barry, we will have links to all of those shows back at our website, which as always is edinburghfringe.thepodcastcorner.com. Where's the best place for people to follow you online?
So barryferns.co.uk and that is .co.uk. So and yeah, you can find me on Instagram, right? So my Instagram handle is Barry Ferns, and I wanted obviously at Barry Ferns, but I went to get it and I realized that somebody else had taken it, and I was a bit miffed. And then about a year later, I realized that I'd taken it beforehand and totally forgotten that I'd registered it and forgotten what email it was registered to. So in other words, I absolutely undermine myself, which is, I think, my life role to myself, to absolutely undermine myself at every corner. So it's Barry Ferns on Instagram.
Well, Lionel, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Lovely to meet you. You can become part of the Commodores whenever you like.
I'm more a ZX Spectrum myself. Barry Ferns there with his show My 7 Years as Lionel Ritchie. He's playing at Just the Tonic at the Caves, 6:40 right through until the 24th of August. The Angel Comedy Showcase, also mentioned there, Laughing Horse at Kick-Ass Cowgate, 2 p.m, again right through until the 24th. And of course, that gig at the top of Arthur's Seat as well. As always, links to the box office, the websites, the Instagrams, and all the usual, including Barry's websites, will be back at our website, edinburghfringe.thepodcastcorner.com. As it is in 2025, link, like, love, share, subscribe, tell the people, all the usual stuff that you get for social media. Please consider leaving us a star or review rating in your podcast directory of choice. The preview shows for us are now finished, so come Monday we are going to be into our daily podcast as well, Monday through Friday, and that gives me Saturday, Sunday to explore and find more stuff for you. So the Fringe is now very much underway. Tickets are on sale for the public. My spreadsheet says we're good to go, so we're good to go. Ta-ra for now. Catch you in the next show. Been listening to the Edinburgh Fringe Show, hosted by Ewan Spence, produced by the Podcast Corner for Spence Media and Radio 6 International. Listen to more from the Fringe at edinburghfringe.thepodcastcorner.com.